So I wanted to ask, you were in Tustin in 86?
Yep, I went into boot camp in '86, and then joined 466 after I went through 302 and all that air crew school in Pensacola. Did all that, and then
Yep.
I got to 466 end of '87, mid '87, end
Okay.
'87.
Yeah, it's funny because Craig and I were talking on the last episode we did, and so my grandparents lived in Irvine when I was growing up,
Oh,
and
geez.
so we, she I was a handful. I was always going, so they needed to find something to keep me busy. So she would drive me over, and at the time that was all orange groves. You'll remember it was all orange groves
Right?
around the base, and we'd go sit out on the little dirt access road, and I'd stand on the fence line and watch 53s take off and land. And I remember
Yep, all
telling
day
her,
long.
I'm gonna fly those someday. I'm gonna do that. And I didn't even really put it all together until after I was out, that not only did I accomplish that, but I was flying those same planes.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, the
Well, what's
same
crazy is
planes you were
my
flying are
son.
the ones Craig and I were flying.
Right? And my son sent me whenever he was in Okinawa or wherever he was, he'd be like, he'd take a picture of a tail number. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, it's scary as all get out that they're still flying those same things today after the shit we went through with
Mm-hmm.
them. I was like, whoa, come on now. But yeah, you know what? I love Tustin. And I'll be honest, what was that, a year and a half or so ago when Hangar One burnt down?
Mm-hmm.
They were showing on the news, and my wife's
Yeah,
looking
what
at
a
me. I've got
bummer.
a tear going down. She's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "You don't understand. My first earthquake
Mm-hmm.
experience is here's this Iowa kid, never seen an earthquake, never lived through one, and we're up in the rafters screwing around, and all of a sudden it
Mm-hmm.
hits, and this whole huge wooden structure's doing this, and I'm like, oh my
Oh.
God, So yeah,
Were
so when it
you
burnt
were
down,
you
it broke
there?
my heart.
Were you there when the Santa Anas flipped all those birds over on their
God,
sides?
when was it
That I think
the
that
D
that was
models that
kind of
got
end of
flipped?
the late '80s. That was late '80s, I
Yeah,
think.
I think we may have been on a deployment, one of the two. I remember it
Okay.
happening, but we didn't. Yeah, I remember there were several times we had to park most of them in. We stack them in the. We had a new hangar.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been on the way
Yeah.
north side of the base, off of Red Hill. No, not Red Hill. What is that runs towards Huntington Beach? Anyway, yeah, that's where we were out there. So we'd stack them in there. But I do remember that.
Yep.
Or there's many times where we'd be turning up, and then the winds would come, and you couldn't shut down because the winds were too strong. You'd be sitting there turning
Mm-hmm.
on the ramp for, I don't know, 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I love that
Yeah.
base.
Those
I was,
winds,
I
people don't
was,
understand.
yeah, no, Santa Anas aren't a joke. And here's, like I said,
I,
Midwestern boy. I didn't know. It's just a little wind. What the
mm-hmm.
holy hell, man? Yeah, it didn't mess around any. But yeah, you know what? That was an amazing base. It was sad. I mean,
Yep.
I work for an airline, so I get overnights in Orange
Mm,
County a lot, and we'll
yeah.
fly
So
over it,
it's
and I'm
sad to
like,
see it
oh,
now.
there. It is. Little church is gone and everything. I'm
Yep.
like, oh man, but developers got to get what they got
Yeah.
to get.
When I first went in, my first duty station was El Toro,
Oh, geez.
and I was there for probably 6 to 8 months before I got attached to an F-18 squadron and sent down to Miramar.
Okay.
And so at that time, we were moving. All the rotor wing stuff was starting to move over to El Toro because they were formally
Hmm.
shutting down Tustin. But I still had buddies living in Tustin housing, and so we'd go over there, and it's sad to see the state of all of those bases now, just completely run down.
Yeah, I see there's a guy who does a bunch of drone videos over El Toro, and the tower's still there, and I think a chunk of the runway's still there, and
Hmm.
they do it for like car shows or whatever. But other than that,
Hmm.
yeah, I was shocked that they didn't use El Toro as a new John Wayne when they had the chance, but El Toro people were like, no, we don't want that.
Yeah, and it's funny because my aunt and uncle lived in that approach pattern to El Toro. They were part of the people that were complaining about the noise, and I remember
No.
being stationed there and visiting them, and them complaining, and I'm like, dude, this house is 10 years old and the base is 50.
Right? It's like you bought
Like,
the house
what are you
knowing it was there. It
complaining
didn't like come
about?
up. Right.
Yeah, did they only did
Right.
they only bring you to show you the house after field hours? Come on.
Must have been like on a 3-day holiday or something like that. Nobody's flying, no one's doing anything. It's the same
Right?
everywhere. You still get it. Even
Hmm.
Miramar, they're still complaining about it.
Oh
But
yeah.
you know, yeah, yeah.
That's the sound of your
But
freedom.
It is, and we would take my sons to air show and stuff, and he would go to Miramar Air Show all the time. He was
Hmm.
raised at that air show, and he would see him flying and
Yep.
doing the
So was
MagTaff
I.
demo, and he would see it, and yeah, and he just, he was enamored with it, aviation, because my wife's been with the
Yep.
same airline for 30 years. I've been with them off and on for 28. Um, and it's a blast. He was always the aviation kid, so anything he could do he was in
Yep.
a program in high school. All throughout his 4 years of high school, this is a aviation Cascadia Tech up in
Hmm.
Portland area, and you could take classes in the afternoon. It would go towards your college credits and things like that. So he was trying to get his private
Hmm.
and doing all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, I grew up the same way. And I mean, Southern California was awesome for air shows in the 80s. I mean, you had
oh yeah,
Norton, Edwards, El Toro, Miramar was still Navy. I mean, you had all these bases. I mean, it seemed like in the summertime, every weekend we were at a different air show. And I
oh yeah,
mean,
we would
just,
go do ones up
I,
in Pass Robles, and there was, like you said, just California in general. I mean, it was sunny and 72 every day. I mean, you could go anywhere and fly. It'd be great
yeah.
flying weather.
By the time I went in the Marine Corps and started flying, and aircraft recognition and threat recognition became like something I needed to worry about. It was easy because I'd grown up, I mean, it was just always around.
Right? Yeah. No, it's the same thing. And so when I then went to Afghanistan and Iraq for 2-ish years. I took a leave of
Okay.
absence and went over there, and I was flying unmanned aircraft over there for the government,
Oh,
and for
really?
we basically were attached
Hmm.
to the 75th Rangers, so we were their primary support.
Yep.
So, my
That's
son would,
crazy.
see us doing that, and yeah, yeah. So it was. I've
Where
kind
were
of
you
had a
guys
weird
living
a
during that
weird
time?
upbringing. So we were in Thousand
Like after you
Oaks,
got out of the Marine Corps,
California,
I
so just
guess.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was after I got out. So I got out, and then I went
Okay.
to work for the airline that South I worked for South we both worked for Southwest. I worked for Southwest,
Oh, okay.
and then did a leave of absence, then went over to Iraq, Afghanistan, flew all that stuff for a couple of years, came back, needed a bunch of surgeries to get fixed, so I needed to get back surgery, knees replaced, all that other good
Hmm.
stuff, and once I got healed, during my healing process, I was doing, like, 911 operator stuff. I just needed
Hmm.
something sedentary, and then I wanted to come back to Southwest eventually again because they're an amazing company. If you guys ever get a chance, you can
Hmm.
um, Google Southwest Airlines: A Final Salute. They actually did a 5-minute movie about our son,
Oh, really?
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
actually on our entertainment system. So when this all happened, I was on a trip. We had just landed in Ontario. We were off. We were just loading people back on the plane, and my wife texts me. And she goes, she's calling me, and I'm like, I can't answer it. I can't answer it. Ignore, ignore. She texts me 911, then immediately calls me back. And I'm like, all right, what's going on? And she goes, hey, Alec never made it to his apartment last night. And we knew he was flying back from Nevada. They were doing a 2-week NVG deployment. I'm like, look,
Hmm.
he may have stopped off at a friend's house, had a beer or two, just couldn't drive. Maybe he just crashed out. I said, we don't know what we don't know. I said, call the unit, find out if he's even overdue. And then she calls the unit, or before she even called the unit, she texts me back. She goes, all over Fox and CNN. And at the time, it was that it was down, the crew was missing.
Yeah.
So I immediately get on another Southwest plane. They're like, you need to leave. I leave. I get on a flight, get home. As soon as you walk in the door, there's a knock at our door, and there's 2 Marines. At that time, it was just a dust wind, right? We know they went down. We just don't know how anybody is. Um, so I was like, okay. I said, maybe it was just a hard landing and not what the media says was a crash, right? I figured over exaggeration kind of a thing. And so we're holding out hope. So we call our daughter, get her to fly out. And, Karen's going 8 different miles an hour. I'm going 80 different ways trying to figure out what's going on. Get our daughter out. As we drive into the airport, they call at like 10 o'clock at night. They're like, hey, we got an update. I said, okay, well, I'm not home. And so come to find out, they were doing the staging for all the families be notified at one time. And so everybody else had to wait. And then we picked up our daughter, come home, and at least she was home for it. And that's when they broke the news to us. So our company, Southwest, they have a plane called Freedom One, painted stars and stripes, 737, huge thing. And our son wanted to eventually come here and be an A&P mechanic. He wanted to work on heavy aircraft, and he loved Freedom One. So when we were bringing his remains back from Dover for his final flight, our company parked Freedom One in Baltimore for 4 days waiting for us. To park an
Really?
aircraft to not make any money for 4
Hmm.
days. so that our son could be flown home in that. And then when we landed, they shut down one whole terminal side, the low D's in Phoenix, shut it all down because there was hundreds of people that showed up. DEA, FBI, fire, police, employees just flooded the ramp. And we had gotten so many messages from people from Southwest. We asked our CEO, we're like, look, if we make a video thanking everybody, can you post it on our internet site and make sure it gets out there? He's like, I'll do you one better. So when we landed, he had his marketing team there and they had cameras, which thank God they recorded it. And then our service was going to be the following Monday. And we were like, where can we have this? It's easy in, easy out for these hundreds of employees that wanted to fly in for it. And they're like, we have a brand new maintenance hangar. We haven't even taken possession of it yet. Have it in there. So when the plane parked on Friday night, the CEO told our maintenance guys, your only job is to wash and wax this 737. They washed and waxed it, parked it in there, and that was the backdrop for our son's memorial. It was a 737 Stars and Stripes. They have, the unit wanted to go to one pilot's memorial. They all wanted to show support for it. So they asked us for, could Southwest give us a discount? I can ask. And we asked our CEO. He's like, no, I'll just give them a plane for free for a day. Just gave them a plane for free. Pilots, flight attendants, flew them up there, flew them back same day. So, our
That's
organization
awesome.
has just been, they've been over backwards. They dedicated a memorial at headquarters. It's going to be there for the rest of, be there forever. So it's, I can't say enough about our group of people we have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing gestures they did.
Oh, they've,
Well,
they
they've always
continue
been
to do
pro-veteran. It's
no,
always
we
been
have a
known that they're
huge,
pro-veteran.
yeah, we have a huge employee group of veterans, and we recruit for veterans. Whether you're pilots or whether you're mechanics or whether you're just a regular person, just want a regular customer service job. We have I think over 10,000 veterans that work for Southwest right now, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was forget when I first heard of that exactly, what the date was or whatever. Sure, it was, within a day or two or something like that. But I was in Dallas at the time, and it was probably Rippin' Shitters or, one of those pages.
Right.
Or something like that, posted a news story. And it's amazing how after you've spent so much time in the 53 community, especially as a flyer, how much that hits home when you hear that anything happened to anybody on a 53.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It's such a small, tight-knit community. I mean, I had guys that I hadn't spoken to in decades that I served with who were like, holy shit, just heard about your son. I'm so sorry, and we still get messages today that we had the second anniversary on February 7th, and we hiked up to the crash site. And as we're driving home, some random guy, he's a country singer, he made a song about our son, and he goes, do you mind if I send it to you? And I'm like, absolutely not, feel free. And he sends it, we're driving back from San Diego, we're in the car, just bawling like a couple of kids. So there's just these people that continue to just pour out of the woodwork, and it's, you think the world is in this terrible place and that no one cares. And, a lot of people do. And especially people of San Diego County, we went to the Miramar Air Show in 2024, and we were invited by the CEO of the base. He's like, I want you to come. So we came, and there was a California search and rescue group that was there. And lo and behold, we ran into 3 guys who were there trying to, help find them. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm on a flight and I see this guy, he's got a San Diego County Sheriff's helicopter badge on. And I'm like, you fly for San Diego? He's like, oh, yeah. And I said, you didn't happen to be working on this night, were you? And he's like, well, we tried to. He's like, why? And I said, that was my son. He starts crying on the plane. We're both like crying on the plane. It's just all these weird things that have, I haven't been a real big sign kind of a guy, like there's signs that happen and things. But, when things like that happen, it's kind of like, geez Louise, that's just my boy, I think, who's just throwing these people in my way just to make sure that, he knows that people cared. So.
So in the investigation, it was kind of like, okay, did they, I guess my question is, was it the actual impact that is what ended it for everybody, or were they injured upon landing and then it was the weather afterward, or what happened there, Steve?
So the whole day there was in aviation, you line up the Swiss cheese holes, right? And all these Swiss cheese holes in the Swiss cheese make a decision. All day long, there's all these decisions that were made that finally, so everybody was killed on impact. It was a go home day. But for some reason, they did a training mission before they flew home. So they took off like 1600, flew for a couple hours, gave some guys some training, and then they landed back at Nellis, got gas. They got an updated weather report. So Nellis looked good. Imperial Valley, where they were stopping for gas, looked good. And Miramar looked good. But between Imperial Valley and Miramar, there is no reporting stations for weather.
And that's a
So as they're flying
scary stretch to fly.
It is. It's horrible. So as they're flying to Imperial Valley, they had a caution light go on for number 2 engine. And they were landing in Imperial Valley anyway to get gas and get food. So they landed. They did a precautionary emergency landing. So they did a PEL, supposedly. They landed, and my son checked it out, and it was a wire going into a cannon plug that had rubbed, and it was just grounding out. He calls back to the base, gets the okay to throw some electrical tape on it. So they take off. They got weather. Apparently the guy in the left seat calls the base, talks to the CO, and says, "Hey, what's the weather like?" He's like, "Oh, it's not bad here, blah, blah, blah." "Okay, we landed, precautionary emergency landing. We just put a piece of tape on it. It's not a big deal." Okay. Apparently, from the investigation, which personally I don't agree with, after doing this job, you put pieces of tape on things, you hit things with a crescent wrench to make it work. There's things you do. Apparently now they consider putting a piece of tape on a maintenance action. And apparently because he didn't, the CO didn't get the approval from the wing CO to continue on because of that piece of tape. That's why he was let go. I am a supporter of Lieutenant Colonel Harvey. I thought he was an amazing person. I don't agree with that personally. That's, he got forced out and got to retire early, but I don't agree with that. That wasn't a maintenance action. But anyway, so they take off. They basically hit around Yuma, and then they head west. And then they're following the 8. And then they get just across into California. And then all of a sudden, you can see on the ADSB, they did a huge 360. Come to find out, they got into the mix and they were descending. Then they continued on back over the offside of the 8 with some like big windmill turbines. It's a casino gas station. They went south of that, looped around, and came back up.
Sorry, Steve, you faded out there for a second. The last thing was you said they did a 360 as they came into California.
Yeah, well, yeah, they came into California, did a huge 360. I guess they had gotten into the mix, into the clouds, and had to get out of it because they were flying in MVGs as well. So, but then that's where the bad weather was really starting to start, was right there. And as it was low ceilings, low freezing level, it was sleeting and snow. They got to around that casino. They went south of that to avoid the big wind turbines and came around. And as they did, the train came up and there was no pilot input. All the instruments froze on impact. So everything was running normally. They were going like 120 knots. I mean, they were hauling. But for whatever reason, whether the rad out got turned off because it kept going off and they were like, "Oh, I know where I'm at." And so mountain kind of comes up like this and then flattens out. Then there's another one. They hit the first ridge. And then she just kind of tumbled and landed kind of in that little plateau that's there. No one, I don't think, from what medical examiner was, there was no suffering. As a parent, your biggest concern is, did my kid suffer? Did he burn at all? And then did he come as to whole? Because I'm not sure if you ever saw the video, they were showing the hearses going down to the airfield to fly everybody to Dover. Well, there was 5 crew members, but there were 6 hearses. So that's because there were detachments of things that they treat as, they don't arbitrarily say this is yours. So they put it in a transfer case on its own and treat it with the same respect. So that was our concern. But, for our son, he didn't suffer, he didn't burn. He came to the medical examiner whole. So
it's usually the pilots that don't come whole.
Yeah. So the reason, when it happened in the investigation report, we're getting the unredacted version thrown at us with 5 Marines sitting there. Like, "Oh, feel free to read it," but they're all kind of like tapping their watches, kind of like, "I got places to go, I got other reports to do." So, but here's your copy.
You know how to read it.
Well, yeah, but they give you a copy, but out of the 1,900 pages, over 900 are fully redacted. So you're kind of like, there's nothing secret squirrel about a 53. I mean, honestly, it's been around for 40 years, 50 years. I mean, there's nothing in it, but it is what it is. So, we got to read that, the unredacted version, and, the subsequent things that, my questions were, why wasn't a radar altimeter set? Why weren't some of these, they're like, well, we can only hypothesize that it was set. Okay, but then tell me why they ran into the side of a mountain that didn't like arbitrarily. I mean, it was a gradual. So, why were they taking that route? Why didn't you just follow the 8 all the way through the valley and then turn up north once you get past the mountains, kind of a thing? Because they were trying to stay VFR to the road, to Interstate 8 is what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, those kind of things like, well, but this accident's going to change our training and we're using this in the simulator as real world training. And I'm like, okay, great. But there's still these unanswered questions that we'll never have, because 53s were never updated to have survivable crash data recorders. There's no cockpit recording in them. Yeah, my thing was like, look, I know the new K models that are coming out have survivable crash data recorders. That's great. But these 53Es are going to be in service for the next 10 years at least, because the K models are so far behind. And so I've reached out to congressmen and senators and to say, hey, we'd like some funding. And the Marine Corps said, yeah, no, it's not going to happen, because the lifespan of the 53 is going out. And it's like, well, is it though? So, for me, it's,
I mean, how long did they tell us the Ds were going to get retired? And we flew those things right up to like 2013.
Right. Yeah. They had them in Hawaii till that 2013, 14, somewhere around there. So these echoes are going to then go to reserve squadrons for a while. So, it's, yes, there were some lessons learned, but, there's a lot of things that, like in the report, it had said so my questions were, your aircraft's expected home at a certain time. It didn't get there at that time. What did you guys do? Well, they let Miramar base know, hey, look, we still have an aircraft coming out. They're like, well, we're closing the airfield at midnight. So if they're not here, that's too bad. And that duty officer for Miramar went to bed knowing there's an aircraft overdue and didn't tell a single soul. Not one. It wouldn't have changed anything. Everybody was deceased on impact, and it wouldn't have changed anything. But even in the report, it says that duty officer, although very inept.
What if the next time it could change something?
Right. And that's my thing. Like, this guy went home, went to bed, and they called him at 6:30 the next morning, all groggy. He's like, "Go, what? Oh yeah, they were overdue." And they're like, "What the hell?" So, but then, that night there was, you couldn't even get anybody up there. I remember seeing videos of Humvees trying to go down the dirt road, and they're just stopping and they're sliding off, and it was just horrible mud. It was that, reddish kind of clay mud that you can't get traction for shit on anyway. So, but technically that happened on the 6th. They found on the morning of the 7th, and they declared everybody. Our son, from where I could tell where he was sitting on the jump seat in the middle, trying to help. And he was, what's going to happen when you're sitting on there, when you stop abruptly, that gearbox is just going to. So, he was found in the wiring of the whole, ceiling area. The pilots were, I don't want to talk about anybody else's family. That's not fair to me, but everybody was kind of spread apart. But our son was, he was in the wiring in the mix, and we felt horrible when we went to the unit memorial about a week later. Our first question to the CO was, the CO was fine. He goes, I was fine up until you showed up. He started bawling like crazy because he knew Alec really well. And our first question was, where's the corpsman at? Where's the unit corpsman that had to go identify all 5 of them? I want to check on him, because that poor kid, good God, he even had that blank look in his eyes. And we still keep in contact with him today just to check on him, just to make sure he's getting the help he needs, gets to talk to people he needs to get to talk to, just because, for a young kid like that to have to be responsible for declaring 5 of his fellow Marines, that's just oof. And the poor one guy, one of the pilots, he was just getting a ride in the back. He was just going home. So it's
unfortunate that it's unfortunate it takes a situation like this for them to change how they do procedures, and for people to realize, like, hey, I shouldn't have gone to bed without I'm on an air station. It should be common knowledge that we don't go to bed till everything's on deck. But and it sucks so bad that things like that have to happen before something changes. I mean, realistically, like the squadron probably should have told them to stay on deck in Imperial Valley just because they didn't know what was going on over that ridge. And I've flown that ridge so many times, and if you lose 8 and you get caught in those clouds, it is like good luck. I
Oh,
mean,
it is.
and
It
it, and
is.
it
You know, and they had
socks
every.
in like quick.
It gets thick. Yeah, it does. It doesn't take any time at all. You know, Yuma's right there. You know, you got
Yeah.
to go back to Imperial Valley. You know, and
Especially on
it's a
goggles
hard.
too.
We. Oh my God. You know, yeah. On goggles is
You don't
even worse.
realize it until you don't realize it till you're deep in it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember, doing, being up at God, what the hell was that crappy naval station up in the middle of nowhere in Nevada?
Fallon,
Yes,
the
thank
top
you.
I moved to
Um,
Fallon. Yeah.
yeah, we were about to Fallon doing MEG training up there, and you're always looking out for wires and all sorts of other stuff. But
Yeah.
you know, we never ever wanted. My wife and I were very adamant on things, and one of those was is that we never wanted one person to be to blame. We feel that the
Yep.
5 of them were together as a crew, and they made a
Yeah.
decision as a crew. And I understand that they had
Yeah.
to assign something, and for us, it's heartbreaking
Hmm.
that one
Yeah.
person is going to be saddled with that for the rest of their life, and that's you know
Did
there's
they
no
assign the
animosity
hack then?
towards. Yeah, they did. They basically said that it was it was pilot error. There was errors in judgment, and I can even send you guys the redacted version if you guys want to look it over. It's an interesting read. Just kind of seeing how the whole day went, and my thing was that when it was go home day, when we were out of CAX or WTI or wherever we
Hmm.
were, there was no training on the go home day. You're
Yeah.
mentally, you're not even in the realm to even want to do training. You were packing up shit, you're getting ready to go. And what was
That
surprising
started
was
in
that
the
there's
late
supposed to be a flight.
'90s.
Is that yeah? And what was surprising
I
is there's
mean,
supposed to be a flight of two, and
because
the
I
other.
lived both.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I lived through. You went on a cross country, you did your training, and then did your final training the night before or whatever, and then the next day
Right.
was movement day. But
Yeah.
then I remember vividly when all of that changed and it became we're gonna train right up until the minute that we're leaving. We'll go do gun runs, and then we'll come back and we'll we won't even turn the birds off. We'll just load everything up and go. And
Mm.
unfortunately, I mean, human factors is 80% of aviation incidents, and the more you wear out the crews doing stuff like that, the more likely it is to happen. And in combat, that's one thing, but when you're CONUS, there's really no reason to push the envelope like that. But we all want
No,
to make mission. We all want to stay in good favor with the command structure.
right. And my thing was is that so that aircraft was due to be back up 2 days later for a dead of
Hmm.
4 that were going out.
Oh yeah, so that's a
And so as
push
I'm
too.
reading this, well, I'm talking to my wife
Hmm.
about it, and
Yep.
as the guys are there, and I'm like, so I asked them when they were there, I was like, so you're telling me that there was, and he put in the report, there was no pressure to have that aircraft
Hmm.
back because you had a dead of 4
Yeah.
leaving, that was a backup.
Yeah. There was no
I think
25,
that
50, 100 hour waiting on it,
no, no, there wasn't.
right?
And
Yeah.
so here you go, and I'm like, and that's you're saying that's not a factor at all. And they're like, oh no, we interviewed dozens of people in the squadron. I'm like, well, that's great. I'm like, nobody wants to throw anybody under the bus, and I get it,
Nope.
but I can guarantee you the AMO was like, hey, we
Yeah.
need that thing back. I think that was probably a pressure that was being put on them to get back as well. You
Yeah.
know,
We've all been through that.
we've all been through it. I've been through it,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those things in military aviation. That's
Hell,
just there is that pressure.
if if you've been a shop supervisor, you've been part of applying the pressure. I mean,
Well, that's true too. And plus at that time the 22s were all down for their gearbox
hmm.
issues. So,
Yeah.
there was pressure to do extra workload, and not that there was that much more. Honestly, if you look at the flight schedule, what was supposed to happen and what they picked up from 22s, it was negligible, really. It wasn't like that was overstressing to them, but that is still an outside factor as well. So,
Yeah.
you
Well, and
know,
sometimes we perceive a pressure that isn't necessarily there just because we're interpreting things differently, or especially when you're like when you're a sergeant and you're that middle management type person, You really want to, like, you want to be the guy who makes things happen. And
Yeah.
that, oh, hey, like, he never goes down in the chops. He always finds a way. And that's like, it's cool to have that. But then there's also there's a fine line where you got to
There
learn to not
there
pressure
is.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and there is. And, and like I said, for the CO to get relieved because they're saying that, in the report that, well, he didn't ask the questions about weather. He basically told them, "Well, just use your best judgment. You're the guys that are out there playing. You know, I know what the weather is here.
Hmm.
I know what the weather is there. But if you run into something, use your best judgment." So, in the report, it calls out it calls out for the aircraft commander that he, whether it's fair or not, I don't know the person. I don't think it's fair to say that. Well, he was a guy that would make decisions when somebody would tell him the decision to make. I think that's kind of unfair to a guy.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's just flying. He's only got
Kind
the
of saying
data
he's
that he
not
has.
strong. Yeah.
Kind of, that's what it seemed like. Which okay.
Well,
I
and I mean, there's a lot of, and Craig and I have talked about, there's a different dynamic between enlisted and officer when you're crew members together, because
right.
they got to put a lot of trust into us, as the maintainers, that, and us saying, hey, like, this is good to go, sir. Just get in and wiggle the
Hmm.
sticks and let's light kick tires, light the fires, let's get out of here.
Right.
But, you said something about that tape being a maintenance action. And I mean, I had a second helmet bag that had tack gens and freaking cannon plugs, all kinds of shit in it, because I wasn't the guy who was gonna have a down bird somewhere.
Right.
I mean, that was
And
common practice. I learned that from somebody. And to call
and it,
putting a little bit of tape on a wire to protect it, I mean,
as a
that's the
maintenance
kind of
action
thing that
that
a
would have
kid will do on a daily.
exactly, that's just what it is. And here you are on go home day. You're in the middle of Imperial Valley getting
Yeah,
gas, and you're like, okay, well, I can fix this. And they like, yeah.
yeah,
He got the okay from the QA lead to go ahead and put it on. My son was a CDI QER, so I mean, he knew what he was doing. And
yep.
at first, people were like, well, like there is a family that is still very upset, and we're all upset in a way, but there's
Hmm.
one that's just really
Yeah.
upset, and is wanting to use their own
I'm
investigative
assuming it's
team to.
I'm sure it's probably the youngest kid, the
Yes,
Lance Corporal's parents.
um, yes,
He didn't have time to
and
process what he was doing before it was over.
that he had a tough beginning in his Marine Corps career, but he was really turning himself around.
Yeah.
And, so the kid was making great strides. And if I think his dad was a naval commander of some kind,
Hmm.
and is just kind of upset
Yeah.
at just a lot of different things. They have some personal things they're upset about, and there's some other things,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're just really upset. So, and they want. I think the dad's pushing for like his own private investigation to kind of do one thing. And
Yeah.
one thing they were focusing on was this number two engine malfunction. It's like, well, it wasn't a malfunction; it was just a
Yeah.
cannon plug given a
Yeah.
faulty caution light up front. So,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, and as the
Well, and
instrumentation shows,
you're gonna have a different perspective having
right,
hands-on knowledge too, where, and I think that you also have a different perspective where, because you went out and did that same thing, you kind
right,
of you had an understanding going in what the dangers were. I mean, every
yeah,
time I got
yeah,
in the
and that's
plane,
and
I
that's
mean, the pilots would come out and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'd be like, "Hey, it's a good day to die. Let's go do this." And you know every time you break the chalks that it might be the last time. You hope it's not, but the reality is you
right,
can't control everything, and you become comfortable with the potential of your own mortality to a level where the risk is worth the reward. And even now, I mean, I have my oldest is leaving for the Marine Corps on June 22nd. um
nice.
he's not going to be aircrew, but I still think about the
Oh yeah,
possibilities. His best friend, however, is going to be aircrew. And even 20 years out, every time one of these incidents happens, it hits you right in the gut, because you can put yourself in that cockpit. You
oh
know,
yeah,
you know
you
what,
know,
you can think about the troubleshooting portion and everything. And but I also think that gives you a different perspective for processing than somebody who, it's just a foreign bird to them that, you know, let's find something to blame it on, to make ourselves
Right.
feel better.
Right. And that's what was, hard when, it seems like now every like January, February, there's something that ends up happening. You had Pat 25 ran into the American Airlines
Mhm.
flight, so
Yeah.
we started a nonprofit and we raised money for families for Navy and Marine Corps mishaps because there's a lot of things the military just can't cover. And
Yeah,
rightfully so.
absolutely.
For example, if you want to, if they'll pay for the remains to go somewhere, but if you as a family want to fly with those remains to the final destination, they don't pay for that.
Nope.
So, we
Nope.
have a great airline. We were fine. But so when Pat 25 happened, there was another Sikorsky was another helicopter that went down. And
Hmm.
even though Army wasn't our forte to do that with, we gave each of their families money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just a couple weeks ago, we had a Bell helicopter here up in Flagstaff with two
Hmm.
Arizona Department of Public Safety officers in it that went down. Another helicopter,
Hmm.
and our hearts broke again. It's like ripping it wide open again. And so we donated to their families too. So, I think that, whether your rotary wing is, you're more attached to it. And even when the F-18 crashed
Yeah.
that same year, later that same year of our sons and the two female pilots, we gave each of their families money. So it's just, aviation accidents really hit home for us. Even before then, like you guys would say, you'd hear of something going down or, the 22s would go
Yep.
down. They seemed like they were happening a lot. You were just
Hmm.
heartbroken. And I don't think it'll ever
And
stop.
especially when
Now
you're,
I think,
especially when you're a WTI. I think I think I
yeah,
saw in one of the pictures of your son, he had the eagle patch on his arm, and once you get to that
yeah,
level,
yeah,
now
he
you've
did.
got friends across platforms too. You've made
Yeah,
these relationships during mission briefs and flights and everything with all these other platforms. So now you have friends on these other platforms, and so it really becomes a thing where, I mean, we're always sentimental to our own aircraft, but I think with anything with aviation, it hits home because you realize how, especially when you make it out to the other side, like we have, and you realize, like, this could have happened to me just as easily anytime.
yeah, exactly. And I've had my close encounters doing NVG training
Yeah.
and landing in the middle of the desert and getting brownouts and just all sorts of other stuff that
Hmm.
would happen. So, I mean, it's, then Desert Shield, Desert Storm came up and, then there's just all that crap that went along with it. Then it was like, oh, just kind of do what you want, kind of a thing at that time.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it's a tight community, but and I'm glad for opportunities like this to be able to talk with people about it and kind of explain some things and help hopefully people understand, it's a great job, and if people watch this and they're like, God, my kid wants to do this.
Yeah.
The day of the unit memorial, the Flightline shop invited us in and they gave us a shadow box that's up there. It's
Hmm.
got a 53 barrel on top of it and they made it all up, and I told them, I'm like, look, everybody that has these wings, I'm like, don't use this as an excuse. I'm like, that would be the worst decision of your life. I'm like, you work hard for these. These are something to be proud of. I'm like, and don't give that up just
Yeah.
because, you
Yeah.
lost some friends. I said, and
Don't let the fear take
I've
over.
I've lost friends. Yeah, exactly. You can't. And that's kind of what we've done, too. It's, perceptions have changed on life, where we're going in life, what we're doing. Um, for my wife and I and our daughter, it's changed us a lot.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's just to not take things for granted anymore. So it's although it's a kick in the gut, and he was only 23, but man, he loved every second of it. And if you have to go out doing something you love, that would be the way he'd want to go.
Yeah, I mean, living your
Hmm.
dream. You said he was a little kid wanting to do
Yeah.
it, and that was one
Yep.
of the things that always kept me doing it. Where, I mean, I had a lot of near misses. The higher you get in hours, the more you have, and
Yeah.
I just kept telling, I'd tell myself those days where you're like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to keep doing this." It's like I've been living my childhood dream my whole adult life, like, and when I'm done with this, I'm gonna go do something else or whatever. But, like, you've chased your dream and you've accessed it. You know, if you
Yeah.
have to go, at least you're doing that. Not just sitting on your
Yeah.
couch
Exactly.
wishing that you did something. And I mean, we can all go at any time. I mean, you can get hit by a car crossing the street, and um,
Right.
so why not be out there doing things? And I mean, we've all been burying friends for a lot of years, and uh, I just tell myself when I get bummed out, like, those homies aren't out there getting to do. They're not getting to do any of this anymore. They're not even getting to be bummed out. I gotta keep doing something, that's worth living. I got to keep doing something for them because
Yeah,
they can't.
exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of our mentality. Our son had, so he had, when he was home in December of 23, we watched the Long Way Round series with Ewan McGregor and his best friend on motorcycles riding around the world.
Hmm.
And our kids grew up with us always having motorcycles. So when Alec finally left for boot camp, my wife and I are like, look, let's slow down a little bit. We're getting in our 50s. Let's just, pump the brakes and let's take not ride bikes for a little while. So Alec came home for leave for Christmas in 23, and he's like, hey, in 2024, I want to get a bike, learn how to ride. Starting in 2025, I'm going to get my dream bike, and then I'm going to meet you guys several times a year. We're going to go riding around the countries. Okay, that sounds awesome. It gives me an excuse to buy a new bike. 6 weeks later, it happens, and a crash happens. And so for months after that, I'm struggling one day. My wife's like, what are you struggling with? And I tell her, do we still do this? Do I still do this?
Yep.
Do I still take rides with my son, or do I let this dream fade with him? And she said, absolutely not. And surprises me with a brand new BMW. And then I, of course, have to turn around and surprise her with a bike. So, which has now turned into, I just got a Harley because I found out about a month ago, a dealer had called me from San Diego. This guy kept calling me on 619 number. I'm like, who's calling me? So I answered, and he's like, hi, is Alec there? So immediately I'm like, who the hell are you? And why are you asking for my dead son? Come to find out, this kid had been talking with my son for weeks back in 2023 and 24 before the crash about buying this Harley that he wanted. And so I hang up with him, and I chewed on it for about a month, and I'm like, I got to find one of those Harleys. And so I actually found the one he was
Hmm.
looking for.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so I ended up, I bought that. And so that's, we do motorcycle rides and memorial rides, and it's part of our fundraising efforts. And it's a cool thing to be able to ride the bike that your kid wanted, and I still cannot get on it without crying at the first little bit.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it, but it brings a tear to my eye, and it's knowing that's something he loved to do, something he wanted to do. So it's, things like that happen for a reason. There's all these little things I said earlier that keep happening that, I'm not a big sign guy. I'm not a big, oh, this is destiny kind of a thing, but here we are, and
Yeah.
and here's everything that people have made for us and sent for us behind me that, just continue to happen every day. So
That's awesome. I think that
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
nonprofit
pretty
is
cool.
amazing too, because like you said, uh, there's other costs and things that are incurred with these situations, and you're already sucked into one of the shittiest situations that a parent can ever imagine, and then to on top of it have to think about how do I afford to even get there.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Yeah.
and Craig and I have talked about this, and I've told my son, we talk at length. I mean, I've told him over and over, I'm like, if you don't come out of boot camp honor grad, it's your own fault because I'm giving you all the cheat codes to get through this. But uh should I just my brain just jumped the track. But the
I get that every
uh,
day. I'm like,
but
what the
but
hell
I've
was I
been
doing
but I've been
downstairs
but
again?
I
Oh yeah,
but
that's
one of the
right.
things I've been telling my kid is, you know, you're used to this life that we've provided for you. His mom works for the government for Fort McCoy. She and her sister own a Japanese ramen restaurant downtown. I have my own business. Um, he's got a nice truck that he and I restored together. He's lived this pretty easy life. And I've told him, I'm like, you're gonna meet people. You might share a rack with somebody who comes out of the Louisiana swamps and doesn't have anything but a screen door
Hmm.
on the front of their house because it never gets cold enough to need more. And like you're gonna meet these people, you're gonna interact, you're gonna learn about them, but you know not everybody can just say, hey, I'm gonna jump on an airplane right now and handle this. I mean, some of these families are in destitute, and these kids join the Marine Corps to get away from it, to try to get themselves out of that. And so I
Right.
think that nonprofit, just the fact that you can help ease some of that for those people is awesome.
And it's been, healing for us as well. It's the, as long as you keep talking about them, they're not going to be just a memory. They're always going to be with you. So
Yep.
it helps us to talk about our son, and we talk about the whole crew, and it's also been helpful for other people because this We just did we also have we created he had a Hot Wheel of a dune buggy, a little orange one as a kid.
Hmm.
He loved that thing. He wanted to build one up. So we found a dune buggy and we built it up. And the generosity of these local people, like one shop painted it
Hmm.
for almost free. One shop did all the engine work for free, just crazy stuff. So we take it to car shows and people come up and this lady was like, "Hey, my son died 12 years ago and no one ever asked me about my son because they're too afraid to." She goes, and that's
Yeah.
all you want to do is talk about your child who passed away
Yep.
because that's just you just want to. And
Hmm.
so she was like crying by the end of it, saying, "My God, thank you for letting me vent." And so it's helped other people as well. So
Yep.
yeah, it's helped us a lot more than we thought it would. Just to be able to get ourselves out there again, and because our son wouldn't want us to be sitting at home sulking, and there's some
No.
families of this crew that haven't gone back to work yet who don't venture out and do things, and it's and that hurts me to know that there's families out there still part of our crew going through that. And I guess that's what's kind of hard about this whole thing too, is that I had in this mentality, my God, we're all going to be joined together forever for the rest of our lives
Yeah.
because our husbands, our sons,
Yeah. Trauma bond.
all perish together. And there's not.
Yeah.
And that's really shocking to me. We're
Yeah.
kind of close with one family, one of the pilots, and they're very sweet people. All of them are very sweet people, but there's not that there. And I guess, and that's kind of hard for me because I would think that we all would have been a little bit tighter with it, kind of a thing. And not that I expect everybody, we're gonna hike up to the crackside every year. That's helps
Yeah.
us. Every other family's like, I'm never going back up there. They already took a big piece of me when
Yeah.
they took my child, my husband. I'm not going to go up there. And I guess I have to be understanding of that. For me, it's hard to grasp. I can't understand why someone wouldn't want to do that. Because for us, it helps me. But, I have to be more open to understand that some people just aren't ready for that and they never will be. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Everybody grieves their own way.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, I feel like, um, shutting down really, isn't the best memory for their child. Just to
Right.
shut down and
Right.
just quit life.
And
I mean, you don't when when you think about your own passing, we all want to pass before our children, but none of us wants our child to just shut down after we pass. We want them to continue on, take whatever they want from our shit, sell the rest of it, and have a good life. And
yeah.
I feel like you should reciprocate that for your child if your child happens to go before you.
Oh, no,
Uh,
exactly. There's no reason that, if I go tomorrow that my daughter should sit at home and sulk.
Yeah.
There's just there's no need for it. Be sad. When we didn't work for almost a good. I didn't go to work for about 10 months. My wife didn't go back to work for a good 8 or 9 months,
Yeah.
and that's just what we needed. People
This.
ask, what do you remember about the night that you guys were told? I goes, two things I remember. The first is the sound my wife and daughter made. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a cry. It was something
Hmm.
god awful that just lives in my memory and it replays every single day. And then the other thing is once the Marines left, which the Keiko guys we've all had have been just flipping phenomenal. Just great guys. My wife turned to me and she grabs me. She goes, "Don't let this break us,"
Hmm.
because it, would break, I think, anybody, any
Oh
family, I
yeah.
think. And we had to work really hard. There was days that after about 6 weeks, everything was kind of quieted down. We're like, we need to get the hell out of here. So we packed up the trailer and just found some mountaintop in New Mexico and stayed up there for 2 weeks. We laughed, we cried, we yelled, we didn't talk at all, and that's where we came up with this foundation that we started. So, and yeah, it's just weird how different everybody agrees. But thank God,
Hmm.
my wife and I kind of agree the same. It's we both know what we need, and it's just worked out well. So
Well, was
thank you
she?
guys
You
for
guys were
letting
married.
me come over here and talk to you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Were you guys married when you were in the Marine Corps?
No, no, we were not. We met
No. Okay.
after I
So
had got out,
she's not
and I
had
met her at
to. She's not
Southwest. Yeah.
had to. Yeah. So she's not had to be the wife sitting sitting back at Tustin Housing, hoping that your plane came back. She didn't
No, but when I went to
she didn't
Afghanistan,
already
those are
have
two.
some
When I went over there,
info to work off of.
well, so when I went to Afghanistan, there'd be
Yeah.
um, times where I wouldn't talk to her for 4 days or so, and I'd be like, "Hey, that's just the nature of the work." Sorry, and um, so it's she has been just the strongest person I've ever known, to not only deal with her son, but have to deal with me and my shit as far as, with losing our son. It's, probably one of the strongest people I will ever know. And, without her, I think that, I wouldn't have made it through this, and there's been realization talks where like, hey, you know what? I think you're drinking a little too much, kind of a thing. You need to slow down or or do some help with it, because that was kind of that was my crutch, and,
Yeah.
and,
Been a
so
lot of our
now it's,
crutches for
we're
things.
reaching. Yeah, yeah. And so now the crutch is riding motorcycles, and so we do that quite a lot. So that's now our new crutch. So that's and like you said, I'm not going to sit at home and pout away and not live life the way it's meant to be. So here we are going out there and riding like crazy.
Mm-hmm. And it seems, as we talked about earlier, basically understanding that you're living life on the edge, when you're going up in an aircraft, and especially something as old and as beat on as the 53. And it seems that, Alec would be happy that you have built something out of this tragedy, and now it's bringing you together with all these other families, who have gone through something similar. Um, so at least something beneficial has come out of it and created some sort of sense of community for other families out there.
And it has, like when we went to we were getting all these accolades about Alec. And your kid, when he's coming home on leave or whatever, and he's like, trying to tell me these things that he does, and I'm like, okay, calm down. You know, did you ever land on the back of a battleship back in the Gulf War? No, so be quiet. Um, but you're like, yeah, yeah. But now that when he was gone, there's always people senior to him in age, senior to him in rank, saying your son was my mentor. My 23-year-old was your mentor, and that blew me away. And that he was always helping people, and all these people are coming out of the woodwork. There's a girl now at Pensacola in flight school because my son helped her study, and told her, she's like, oh, I shouldn't go fly because I'm a woman. And he's like, beating it into her. You're more than good enough. And so now she's getting her wings, hopefully in June or July. So there's all these other people that have stepped forward and be like, my God, your son did this. So part of our draw to do a foundation was to continue to help others in his honor, and that's kind of what we do. So it's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. Seems
Yeah.
awfully
how do you guys
fulfilling.
fund? Go ahead, Craig.
So we'll do events that are already set up, like 5Ks, 10Ks. We do memorial hikes. Like we've been to Italy, Scotland, where we've gone hiking, and we raise money during our hikes by we sell merchandise on our website, or you can just make a donation, that kind of a thing. So we sell memorial patches, shirts like these, and other things. So yeah, that's primarily how we raise money. Does it raise a ton? No, we would like more. Oh, of course, sure. But it's when the need arises, we have funds available set aside for families that we can, give thousands of dollars to. And then when things do happen, we'll try to do fundraisers on top of that. We kind of partner with either Wingman Foundation, and we'll do conjunctions with them because they've been amazing. Brotalion, Blue Skies Foundation, we kind of link up with them too to do things too. So a lot of the things that we do, we volunteer our hours, and because our company's so amazing, that so many hours gets us to donate a free space ticket, a free airline ticket
Okay.
for two. So we donate all these things to Brotalion and Blue Skies and Wingman, and we've even done locally for Arizona Memorial motorcycle riders. We've given them 8 tickets that they can either raffle off or use for other people that need to get somewhere. That lose a family member or something. So, there's so much that we give out that it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I know I've taken up about an hour or so of your guys' time. Feel free to reach out anytime you'd like. I love talking about him. If you guys want a copy of the report where you guys can read it, I'll be more than glad I can send it to you.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll let you know, and we can always hop on another time as well, and talk a little bit more about the 53 experience and its role in the Marine Corps and all that. So
yeah, definitely.
And I like the idea of I like the idea of getting the word out about your foundation too. Just anybody hearing about it is would be awesome. Just because there's so few foundations that are specialized like that.
Yeah, like I said, we primarily focus on Navy and Marine Corps, but as the heart strings get tugged on certain things, you know, we do go out of our way to help others as well. So it's running the number 4 and then Alec, ALEC.org. And you can check out our website, and we're going to have some new stuff coming up here shortly because actually Luke Air Force Base actually invited us out for Luke Days for 3 days for their air show. So we're going to have our memorial buggy out at Luke Air Force Base, and just to kind of fundraise and talk about everybody and talk about the crew. So it, you know, one last thing I'll leave you guys with, the way the crazy things happen in the world. We weren't really media people. And obviously once the names came out, you know, here in Phoenix area, they said Chandler, Arizona, which is just right outside Phoenix. Everybody was just like Fox News, CNN, everybody. We were like, no. So the night after we found out, it's like 3 a.m, I'm sitting up, I can't sleep, having a drink downstairs, and the news comes up. There's an old crappy boot camp photo of my son. I'm like, no. If they're going to talk about him, they're going to know him. So we called them up. We're like, look, we'll do one news interview. So we let a local news agency here at ABC know. They sent this amazing woman out, and she did an interview, and we invited her back for the memorial service. And a few months after the memorial service, she calls us. She goes, hey, the story I did about your son got nominated for an Emmy. I'm like, no way. And we're like, where can we just live stream this? Where can we watch it? She's like, oh, it's here in Phoenix, but you can live stream it. So we didn't tell her we bought tickets for the show, Emmy Awards. And we get all dolled up in a tux and everything, and go to this Emmy. We're hiding in the back of the room. And right before the award starts, she sees us and she's crying, running over, why are you guys here? We're like, look, we're not trying to steal your thunder. We just want to support you and see if you win.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked the organizers, we're like, hey, if she happens to win, I think it'd be cool if we can present her Emmy. They're like, we'll let you know. We sit down for dinner. We're just getting ready to eat. And all of a sudden here they come. And we're like, oh shit, she actually friggin' won this thing. So we get to go upstairs, and she wins an actual Emmy for a story about our son.
That's awesome.
Then at the end of the night, she goes, the only reason I won this is because of your son's sacrifice. So she hands us an Emmy and says, this is yours. And,
Wow.
you know, there's just this craziness that keeps happening in my world that, you know, such tragedy can bring joy to someone else's life, and to, you know, for her to win her first Emmy and to say, here, hand this off. I mean, that's just crazy. So it sits next to our son on the mantle, you know, and it's just things like that, you know, we have over here, there's a chalk picture. You really can't see with the glare, but it's an artist who's world renowned, who does chalk portraits of first families and everything else. And he just does one for us and one for our daughter, and just says, here you go. And it's just, and guys like you who come and want to, you know, let me talk about Alec and 53s. And, you know, it's just one of those things where you just can't thank you doesn't do enough anymore. And you wish you could do more. And there's other eloquent words to say just how much appreciation you have for people like you who give people an opportunity to talk about their kid or to talk about 53s and what they mean. You know, I still see one. I love seeing those things. You know, I don't shy away from it. You know, every once in a while I'll be sitting downstairs and they got the windows open in Phoenix, which is kind of rare, but you have the windows open and you can just hear this little rumble as they're coming back, you know, and they cut right in front of our house. And, you know, I run outside like a little 5-year-old. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. You know, and so I still do it. And it's just, you know, there's just, you know, yeah, when you go to an air show, you know, and you're walking around a static display and you can smell the hydraulic fluid, you know, and you're slipping inside and you're almost busting your ass and you're laughing about it, because I remember those days. And it's just, it's always going to be a part, you know, as there's nothing you can do about it. So again, thank you guys for this opportunity and for what you guys, this means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah,
of course.
Thank you, Steve. Talking to us. Thanks for sharing the story too.
No,
I know
thank you.
I know it's not always easy.
Yeah. No, but it feels good. It feels good to talk about it with like-minded people who, you know the Marine Corps community and who have that.
Well, and it's cool that he's still touching
anytime,
people.
guys. John, Craig. Yeah, and that's what's amazing about it, is that he's still helping people and touching people, and that's all you want as a parent, is just to keep that going.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Right on. Well, leave the John, but Steve, leave the app up here until it shows it's finished uploading or something like that. It should only take a few minutes, maybe a little longer on your side, John. But all right, gentlemen, great chat.
Right, guys.
Appreciate it, and
we'll
stay in touch.
To you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Greg.
All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you guys so much. Take care.
All right, you too.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.